wants to know. Short changes to having to run the cables through the wall.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
All right. Good evening and welcome to the Selectmen's Meeting for January 6, 2020. I'm call the meeting to order and a roll call, please.
Don Klein present.
Wayne Miller present. Join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Announce that the meeting is being recorded. Chairman's additions, deletions, I don't have any that I'm aware of. Public comment period from our one audience member if they have anything.
No, sir.
Okay. So 2.1 review sign, approve the warrant for the special town meeting to be held on January 21st, 2020.
Mr. Chairman.
Just to amend that a little bit, is that at 7 o'clock?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. So fire away.
Okay, what you have in front of you is a draft of the special town meeting warrant. This is all of the articles that came in timely. Thank you, sir. Just gonna follow along with it. There are 21 articles in total. I'll go through them just very briefly. Article 1 is just to hear any reports. You may, for instance, hear from the Charter Commission, review committee there, or any others that have something to say. Next, you'd have usual and customary prior year financial articles. We do have some prior year financial articles to take care of, so those will be being gathered in the next week or so for you. You get to number 3, we're into the current fiscal year financial articles, and the first is coming in from the library trustees, and it's seeking $9,000 to supplement the personal services library director and library tax line item. And this would be as good a place as any to jump off on. Where would money come from if we're to take up any of these articles? We are in the middle of the fiscal year, so raise and appropriate is not an option unless you're looking at doing an override, which is not contemplated in any of this. So that then leaves other available funds, and they are 2. One is free cash, which we know is certified at a little over $500,000, and the other is stabilization. So when you get to issues like Article 3, where it's a request to appropriate money or transfer money for an ongoing operational budget issue, it has always been my position in each of the budgets since I've been here to not use one-time revenue like a free cash or stabilization on a recurrent bill. It's kind of like the whole don't pay your cable bill out of your savings account. Eventually, the money's gone and the bill is still there.
Yep.
I've talked to the library trustees about this. I've talked to Stacy about this, that would be my position on this, but ultimately town meeting will make that call. The next you'll see is Article 4, and this is to seek funding for the retirement separation agreement between the town and Police Chief Rick Bailey. And there is no dollar figure plugged in as of yet. Working with Lori to determine what will be left in the chief line item between now and the end of the year. And then it'll be the delta between the amount contained in the agreement that was executed, the separation agreement, and what's available in the current budget. The same holds true there. Free cash and stabilization of the 2 sources that are available. And this wouldn't be a recurrent expense. This is a settlement one-time expense. Next you get to Article 5, which is one that we've been talking about for some time now, which is transferring the money that's currently in the IT budget under personnel down to professional services. That will allow us to then contract with the outside vendor that we've been speaking about. Articles 6 and 7 come in from the Capital Planning Committee, and they seek to, in Article 6, amend the 15 capital plan by changing the scope from a prior voted article that said town hall for HVAC to town facilities. This will allow us to utilize some of those funds in the Library Senior Center, in addition to being stuck with the specific words of Town Hall. Article 7, similarly, to revisit fiscal 20 capital plan, where it was voted for the Water Department to receive funding for a 1-ton dump truck with plow, and their request is to amend that to be a Water Department utility truck with plow. Then you get to Article 8, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds in the Treasury an amount of money to fund the capital stabilization account for fiscal 21. So every year in the special, before we get to the annual meeting up in the spring, there's a motion to take some amount of money from an available source to fund the capital stabilization account. There's currently around, I think, $80,000 or $90,000 remaining as a balance from last year. It's usually, at least in my 4 years that I've been around now, about $200,000 to $250,000 that gets appropriated from generally free cash at the special town meeting into the capital stabilization. And then the capital committee does its work in working through all of the requests with the department heads to determine which things get funded. So, next you see Article 9, which is $6,700 to restore the plaques in the front of the Memorial Hall. Article 10, which should be coming in from the Water Commissioners, to see if the town will vote to transfer from Water Special Articles Emergency Repairs Fund to increase by $20,000 previously voted article for the West End Main Street Water Main Replacement Project to cover expenses that had not been anticipated. Article 11, similarly.
With that,
Yes.
I'm backing up on that one.
Yep.
So, is that one of the projects we had contingency funds for, or is that all gone?
My understanding is they went through what contingency they had, and they have additional expenses. Article 11, similarly, this one, it would be to transfer from previously voted article for Main Street cleaning, the sum of $50,000 to put toward the West End Main Street project to cover additional expenses not anticipated. So both of those go to that project. And Article 12, also Water Department, is to see if the town will vote to transfer a sum of money from Water Enterprise free cash to the fiscal 20 Water Enterprise budget to supplement the same. And my understanding of this article is it is an amount of money to supplement their general operating budget for the purpose of paying for the interim superintendent services that they've had over the last number of months while they were concurrently paying the superintendent. And that number will be coming in from the commissioners. Next, Article 13, Lucky 13, you get to the revisiting of the pavement management program, which we talked about. Article 14, the long-awaited charter committee presentation. This article takes up the next, whatever number of pages. The entirety of the proposed new charter is in here, and it goes from page 3 to page 18. My understanding from some communication today with Rob Templeton, member of the commission that was given the authorization to communicate the information between the committee, me, and council, is that they'll have a track changes version available that'll be up online later on this week, which will make it a little easier for people to see. Because right now, what exists here is their proposed new charter. And unless you sat with the old charter and read word for word, it'd be difficult to find where the changes are. So with the track changes version, you'll be able to then stare right at it and figure out what's being changed. So you will note as well, and it's important to draw your attention to the actual warrant article 14, the way it's written, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the general court for the enactment of special legislation repealing and replacing the Townsend Home Rule Charter. So to stop there, right now we have a Home Rule Charter which went through the Home Rule Charter process back in 1999, which was an elected charter commission and then a vote at the ballot box. This is a special act charter, which means it's not going to go through those two steps. It's just going to go through town meeting and directly to the legislature. So the language in this article is to, in one article, repeal the current home rule charter as it exists on the books and replace it in its entirety with the following 15 pages. at the top of page 19, Article 15, and this is to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into one or more net metering credit purchase agreements. This is, again, it goes to the discussion that we had earlier, where there's a solar farm that's been created in town that does not yet have the credits assigned to a public entity. And they made a proposal to the town, you'll recall. We forwarded it off to the Energy Committee. And there's some discussion ongoing amongst the party members about what an appropriate rate would be. I think you'll recall a 15% discount was what was originally offered, and the Energy Committee believed that that was on the low side. So none of that has any value at all to even discuss unless there is an authorization from town meeting to allow you to enter into a net metering credit agreement for the 30-year duration. So that's what this is.
So 30 years seems like a bit much for the life of solar panels that I know of. I believe the bylaw committee, just because I was part of it, capped it at 20 years. Because that's the length of the exact wording. I have to go back and read it.
Sure.
If we could double check that to
Absolutely.
matches the bylaws.
If it's your wishes as a board right now, because this is coming in under you, I can make it 20. So there's not a need to amend it on the floor. And then if you prefer it to be 30 after, we can always amend it up. But right now, this is still draft. So would you prefer it to say
I would
20?
think it should be 20 because those panels, at least what everything I've ever read is.
My home
20
system is
years.
only rated for 20. So
Yeah.
So 20, so at least models after the bylaw.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll make that change then. Lovely. Article 16. This comes in from the Housing Authority to see if the town will vote to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 55C, to establish a trust to be known as the Townsend Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The purpose of the trust is to provide for the creation and preservation of affordable housing in Townsend for the benefit of low and moderate income households and for the funding of community housing. So again, that comes in from the elected Housing Authority. And we have Article 17 coming in from the Land Use Department, and it's to see if the town will vote to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 64N, Section 3, and impose a local sales tax upon the sale or transfer of recreational marijuana by a marijuana retailer operating within the town at a rate of 3% of the gross receipts of the vendor from the sale or transfer of recreational marijuana and marijuana products, or taking action related thereto. When adult use marijuana was authorized, cities and towns were allowed to impose a local surcharge or sales tax up to 3%, but only by a vote of the legislative body. So this is coming in from land use planning, I believe specifically, to put that in place if there is ever going to be a discussion about anybody coming in and selling adult use recreational marijuana.
This is just getting ahead of it.
It's at least authorizing the town to be able to charge the fee if it in fact ever comes to pass.
Okay.
Article 18, this is coming in from the Board of Health. It's seeking to repeal Chapter 102 of the general bylaws entitled Recycling in its entirety and substitute the following new Chapter 102 entitled Recycling Committee. And then it goes on for a good number of pages as well. Actually, just 2 pages. Next, you see Article 19 on page 20. See if the town will vote to accept General Law, Chapter 40, Section 22D, regarding adoption, amendment, alteration, repeal of rules and regulations regarding the police department and removal of certain vehicles obstructing handicap ramps, occupying parking spaces designated for the disabled or handicapped. And then the companion piece is the following Article 20, which is why Chief Sartell is here in case there are any questions. This has been something he's been working on for a while now regarding a general bylaw entitled Parking. And it goes on for a couple of pages. And again, he'd be far more adept at speaking to it than I would if you have any questions.
This is just, as I understand it, to have, for the police to be able to take action on parked cars.
Yes.
It's not to designate.
Correct. This isn't designating spaces or moving spaces or disallowing spaces. This is just authorizing the police department to have teeth behind the ticket.
Okay.
And a mechanism to make it a little easier to change it moving forward. You look at, I think on page 21, 113/-3 rules and regulations allows the Board of Selectmen to make rules and regulations relative to parking on a more aggregate level, more specific to a road, to a street, to an area in town. If the board decided they maybe wanted to make a parking rule, we wouldn't have to go through the bylaw process. We would just change the rules and regulations as put out by the Board of Selectmen.
With that question, I know that towns have this for snow. Do we have a parking ban? Or
We do, yeah, in effect now.
Yeah. Because that's how
It keeps the same, there were no changes made in the parking rules as they now exist. It was just codified. So that exact, the rule above that maintains in rules and regulations that leaving the board
Right.
And lastly, Article 21, this year the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into a new 20-year lease agreement with North Middlesex Regional School District for the Spalding School located at 1 Whitcomb Street, to include the parcel of land referred to as the Pheasant Field and land upon which the Spalding School is located, all in conformance with the terms of the North Middlesex Regional School District agreement. The current 20-year agreement expired in October. So we're a couple of 3 months without that agreement being in place. So this is the first opportunity we're going to have to actually revisit reauthorizing that lease agreement.
Just a question. The case from us.
They do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's because we technically own the school.
Gifted by the Spalding Brothers. That's in our belfry. You know the bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems to be a rite of passage.
Yes, it is. Excellent. So that is the entirety of the warrant. So with the exception of making the change from 30 years to 20 years for the term of a net metering credit agreement, does it meet your approval?
No issues at all.
So a motion to adopt the warrant as presented and amended and execute and post.
I make a motion that we adopt the warrant as amended and presented so that we can post this.
Tomorrow, right?
If you sign it, execute tonight and post tomorrow.
And I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. There's a signature version. Well, you're signing that there's a question raised earlier today as to why there's not an article on there for the time and attendance module for employees, because we've had some early discussion about waiting till the special town meeting to be able to fund that module inside of our existing software program that we use. And town accountant and the treasurer collector looked through the budgets and determined that we're able to fund it from within budget, so there was no need to have a special article. And they are moving forward with the process.
Same system or?
Same group, I think it's presented the same one that you all selected as preferred choice going forward, so that just going in the article.
As far as for you, will you be available for the town meeting? Because I know there's going to be questions about this.
Yeah, I think it would probably be a good idea to bring the suggested rules and regulations that we had council draft at that meeting so that there's some clarity to your point about the snow removal ordinance, for instance, is now contained in those rules and regulations. So it would show that there's no change to the parking rules, but that they're just going to be codified.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
2.2, review sign Chapter 90 reimbursement request for the following projects: Road, Bayberry Hill Road, and Clement Road.
I make a motion that we accept, we signed, Chapter 90 reimbursement request for the Old City Road in the amount of $142,642.72. You want me to read all three?
Yes.
Okay. Also, Bayberry Hill Road in the amount of $441,979.21, and Clement Road in the amount of $196,929.72. $2,000.11.
I'll second that. So just to clarify, Jim, because this is the work that's already done.
Yep, you already authorized the application, and this is now that the work is done, authorizing us to move for the reimbursement.
Okay. So this goes through that chapter 90?
It does. Yep, this is Chapter 90 money.
Okay. Any questions from you?
And it could be to sign out of session, because I don't believe that I have them with me this evening, so.
Okay. And, also, that we signed this last session.
Second as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
And just to comment on that, they did a spectacular job on those roads.
Yeah, I know several people on those streets, and they all are more than happy that their roads finally got done.
It's one of those double-edged swords for us, because we had the paving management plan that passed town meeting and failed by a handful, was it 5 or 6 votes at the ballot box? And then we went and did all of this good work throughout the summer. And I've heard from some folks, well, why would we vote to do the paving management plan? Look at all that good work they got done. People should understand that what we got done is 2 years worth of Chapter 90 work. And it's not going to be that amount every year if we don't have the ability to have the pavement management plan in effect. The money that we would normally be taking every year for maintenance purposes, we'd have to use for construction purposes, and the maintenance is going to fall further and further behind.
And that's just going to put us further behind with other roads again. Just
I invite everybody on those roads to come.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Show the difference. We voted on that, right? We voted on this?
Yes, we did.
Good. 2.3, review, accept the firefighter turnout gear and gear washer extractor grant in the amount of $5,000 from the Executive Office of Public Safety.
I make a motion that we accept the firefighter turnout gear and gear washer extractor grant in the amount of $5,000 from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security.
It's another obsession.
I don't know that you're actually signing anything, you're just accepting it.
Accepting.
Oh, okay.
I think they already applied.
Okay. Second. Questions? Everybody? All those in favor?
Aye.
3.1, work sessions, town administrator updates and report.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just listed on the agenda is the budget update, and departmental budgets are due back this Friday, so that'll be the end of the month-long period that departments have had to prepare their budgets. I've received probably a little over half of them already, so we've already started populating the 5-year revenue expense projection model to get that process underway. So I expect at your next regular meeting, I'll have everything populated and be able to tell you, based on the assumptions that are made within the model, what we're looking like for next year. A couple of things that we are aware of already. One is that we're being advised to budget a 10% increase for health insurance. Last year, you may recall that we actually had a negative. We had a reduction. We had a very good year on claims. This past year, not so much. So it's not a real number, it's not a hard number, but at least at this point, the projection we've been given from Maya is 10%. Toward that end, we are entertaining bids back out on the street with other providers. It's always good to check the marketplace and make certain that everybody's pencils are as sharp as they should be. So that'll be taking place kind of in a parallel line with the budget as we move forward.
So with that said, this initial budget you're getting, this is the first pass without school district counties.
Correct. We don't have school district yet. We don't have state aid yet. The governor generally comes to the Friday morning session of the MMA meeting, so that'll be in a couple of weeks, and puts out what's called House 1. Strange, it's the governor's budget, but it's called House 1. That'll be the first peek we'll get at what general government, unrestricted government aid is for our budget. So there are some presumptions that are built into the model that account for that. I think it's a 1% increase over last year is built into the model. And sometimes that's a little more optimistic than we ultimately get, but that's the standard that's in the model that was put forth by the Collins Institute.
Okay. And then the same thing last year.
We do, which is the next question. Last year we did something entirely differently than I I've ever done, which is we had Saturday work sessions with members of the select board and the finance committee. So if you think about whether you think that's something you'd like to do again, whether these schedules will accommodate that, I will do whatever it is that you would like to do. If you'd rather do it more traditionally with visiting regularly scheduled finance committee meetings and select board meetings, I'm good with that as well. So ultimately, this is the single largest policy document that is created for the town, and as the CEO is in charge of policy, this is really your baby. So however you best want to see it cooked, you just let me know.
Since I wasn't part of that last year, how did that work? Did you have all the department heads come at one time on Saturday, or?
We had, not all at one time, we had the big pieces. Yeah, the big departments came generally, one session. So you'd have police, fire, highway, water. The smaller departments that are a little simpler and not as many moving parts didn't come in. But I think it was productive.
I think so too. I think we have a little bit more than we've wanted, speaking personally. But I think we established the process last year. I think we've got to a place where I think we do well efficiently this year. I know the members of the finance committee are different. So.
Well, and I solicit from them as well, making it clear that ultimately it's your budget, so it's your call. Just statutorily in my charter, but see what their wishes are as well. It may be that they say they're not interested in Saturdays, which would end up defeating the purpose of doing it on Saturdays if that was the whole intent of getting the rating in.
Yeah, so I'm interested in doing Saturdays.
It was productive for me, because that was my first one as well. So, at least the stuff we're looking at. Makes it a little bit hazing.
So I've got 2 yeses on Saturdays, and I've got perhaps more streamlined than last year.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. That's what I have for you.
That's it? Yep. 3-2 Board of Selectmen announcements, updates, reports. I don't have anything in front of me. No. 3-3 correct the board announcements and for events.
I have no announcements.
I did see something about the retro.
Oh yeah, they finished clearing the trees. So I know that they're working on, they've cleared it from the center to the church, the front church.
Yep.
They're now working from behind Hannaford's, and they're working towards Groton. I don't know how far along they are, but I know that this section is all open. If people want to walk it, it's all open for walking.
Okay. That's one of the questions I got.
There's still things that they need to do to finish clearing the trees out, and they're going to have a work session, from my understanding. So be prepared for that. And I know that they've got a number of volunteers that have put forth requests to work with these.
So there's no restriction on access?
Not that I'm aware of as far as being able to use it for walking purposes, biking, but I wouldn't use it for cross-country skiing just yet. Because they're not going to, yeah, the rails are still there, the ties are still there. That's probably the second phase. And the third phase would be laying down the actual snowmobile trail.
Okay. 3-5, review approved meeting minutes from November 12th and November 25th, 2019.
Do you want to do them both at the same time?
Yeah.
I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes for November 12th, 2019, and November 25th, 2019.
And I'll second. I reviewed them. I don't have any.
I read them and I didn't have any.
So, take a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
3-6, review and sign payroll and bills payable warrants.
I make a motion that we review and sign payroll and bill payrolls warrants out of session.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye. all set to meet with the capital planning committee on, I believe it's the 15th?
Yes.
Okay, I talked to Mark, but I'll refresh his memory so that he is aware.
Yep, sure, absolutely.
One other thing too, our next regularly scheduled meeting is the 21st, correct? Before town meeting. Okay, so there'll be some meetings. Couple of meetings.
I'll get this document out in motion form in the next couple of days to you guys. And if there's one or two that you're fond of, let me know. If not, I'll just roll them in rolling order. Obviously, planning board, housing board, they'll get their own articles, library will get theirs, but all the others I'll just rotate them between you.
Just make sure.
I think they are right now.
Right now.
I know.
Great. Okay, I make a motion that we adjourn at 6:36.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All set, Harley.